Will Smith, he's back in the news. Slapgate, notwithstanding, he's back in the news, and he is promoting his new movie, Emancipation.
He's kind of on a press tour where it's half groveling for forgiveness from Slapgate, which, if you've been living under a rock, or maybe you just have a life, he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars earlier this year. It was a huge scandal, probably one of the biggest pop culture moments of the year. And then the other half of this press tour has been shilling for this new movie, Emancipation, which is basically a period drama based on a true story about a slave who escaped his plantation where he was.
Thank you.
It's Will Smith playing this slave named Peter, I believe. And the trailer is out if you want to go watch it. It's going to be in theaters on December 2nd, and then after that first week, they're moving it over to Apple TV. Not sure what I think about that, because I think you need to let a movie ride on its own merits in the theaters and have faith in it instead of throwing it right to streaming after.
Thank you. It's this kind of weird zone we're in now with like we just went and saw Glass Onion, right? And they
only gave Glass Onion 1 week to prove itself in theaters, and then they throw it to Netflix. And it doesn't seem fair.
Some things they want. I'm not super familiar with this, but like some things have to get a theater release to qualify for the very important award shows, right? But then other things, like, what was that Western? It was like a series of like short Western stories that were all together. It was a Netflix original. I can't think of the name right now. I hope someone in the chat can think of it.
Yellowstone?
It's not Yellowstone. It's something in Buster McGee or something like that. Okay. I can't think about what it is. But it was a Netflix original. And at the time, I don't know if rules have changed since, to be considered for whatever, the Oscars or movie awards, it had to have a theater release for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
I wonder if that has sort of set a precedent for like, we'll put it in theaters, so it's in theaters.
Half-heartedly.
We never actually intend for it to be there.
They don't ever expect to make the amount of money. They need to keep if you're Apple TV and your Netflix, and that's your business model. Your business model is your subscription service. That's different than, say, like Fox or like 20th Century Fox with Disney, or Disney releasing something in a theater for a week and then putting it on Disney Plus. That doesn't make any sense for their business model. It doesn't make any sense for Warner Brothers to release the next Batman movie in the theaters for a week and then dump it onto HBO Max. Like, it's different when you have that infrastructure built in.
Will Smith doesn't seem to have a lot of faith in this film because he has preemptively blamed controversy around Slapgate for the possible box office and streaming failure that it will face. He said that he understands if someone is not ready. I would absolutely respect that and allow them their space to not be ready following Slapgate. He said, my deepest concern is my team. Antoine has done what I think is the greatest work of his entire career. So he's trying to redirect the focus back to the movie. I respect that. However, I think a smarter response to this controversy could have been, well, the movie is not about me. The movie is about the character and the story that I'm portraying.
Box office bait does not equate box office number. Like Oscar bait does not equate box office numbers anyways anymore. It's always very clearly a ploy.
And you pointed out that it's Oscar bait just because it's coming out in the winter, just in time. And to be honest, this doesn't seem to be what mainstream audiences want. It doesn't seem like it's going to get released overseas at all.
I really don't have a desire to be lectured anymore. That's whether that's what it is. I don't know. If that's
here's
what
the
it is.
irony of it.
No.
While people are coming to Will Smith's defense saying that he has been on this overextended apology tour where he's forced to grovel and lash himself for really what was relatively a small offense. As you said, bar fights happen all the time.
I do not care about Slapgate. No normal, average, everyday person gives a crap about Slapgate.
He is now releasing this film, which is targeted at self-flagellating awfuls.
Yes.
The whole point is there are second chances for me, but not for thee, when you have collective guilt for this nation's history with slavery. it's incredibly ironic and hypocritical.
Especially from celebrities who have never never actually suffered in their life.
Right, like Will Smith.
I don't like
Will
that.
Smith has been in this industry since his childhood.
Yeah.
He lives an incredibly comfortable, cushy life where people affirm him all the time. Even when he physically assaults someone on live television, they come to his defense and quite literally say he did nothing wrong. Like, I've seen many people say that he did nothing wrong. Yep. There were no charges pressed against him. I don't see how it can resonate when someone who lives this cushy of a life makes a film portraying someone who was literally like tortured into a 3-month-long coma.
Another thing that's really interesting is his daughter said, "Daddy, do we really need another slave movie?"
Yes, he openly admitted on Trevor Noah that his daughter Willow said, "Daddy, do we really need another slave movie?" And then he later recounted this interaction he had with his 9-year-old nephew, who asked him after the Oscars, "Why did you hit that man, Uncle Will?"
Her saying that kind of tells you where the culture's going a little bit. Like the youth don't care about this. They don't.
Not even Willow Smith, who you would think is like the wokest of the woke.
Yeah,
cares about your preachy movie.
It's weird because I have this feeling that he like references Slapgate like to be relevant. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what Will Smith does when not slapping someone in the face. Like I'm not up to date.
It's because the interviewers shoehorn that into all of the press for this movie.
But I think the thing is like it's always going to be part of the like keyword search now. Like when you, at least for the next like I don't know 18 months, like when you talk about Will Smith, someone's going to reference the fact that he, you know,
I can't believe
physically
people still
assaulted
care
someone
about
on stage.
this. Like, I wonder if this had happened. No, maybe this seems stupid. If this had happened outside of the Oscars and not on stage, would it have mattered? Like, if the same exact thing had happened, Chris Rock says something disparaging as a joke, and he says, "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth," and then he goes over and slaps him out while they're waiting for their limos. Does it matter? I don't care. I don't care. Apologize.
It was the pomp and circumstance of the awards ceremony, which is entirely phony.
It shows a lack of understanding
that
of
caused the upset.
Yeah.
It shows a lack of decorum.
It's a lack of decorum, but I also think it freaked people out so much.
Why?
Partially because Hollywood is gonna pearl clutch, but also like for the like I don't know, I would have given it like a 24-hour, 48-hour minute in the news cycle. Like it's an unusual thing to happen. It's not okay, and to a certain extent, I feel like it was an indication to a lot of Americans that we are becoming a more a society prone to violent outbursts, and you see this reflected in crime statistics right now. Like violent crimes are up in America, so to see it somewhere you don't expect it was disconcerting. Do I think we needed to hear about it for the next 100 years? No, but I do. Like there's no denying that it is unusual. It's relevant. Again, 24, 48 hours in the news cycle, I'm done. But it went on and on because Hollywood was freaked out for themselves.
Also, $120 million budget on a limited release. Holy crap.
I do think that it's ridiculous for the media to focus on this incident for so long. However, Will Smith isn't doing himself any favors when he could have handled his return to Hollywood much better by going with something classically Will Smith, like a lighthearted action thriller.
This was already in the
a comedy.
pipeline.
It was probably in the pipeline. Yeah. However, I mean, the timing is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And he is focusing too much on it in the press, despite their leading questions.
I think he has. I think his PR people are telling me he has to. That there's no way to just pretend it's not happening. It would be hilarious though if this ends up becoming like a repeat. He wins back-to-back Oscars, and it was he banned? Was he? I don't remember if he was officially banned for 10 years or something like this. And they reinstate him in under a year, and he wins back-to-back Oscars, thus proving the power of American guilt and and the wokeness of our celebrity media class.
Someone tweeted, Brad Pitt is seemingly facing minimal, if any, backlash to the objectively troubling allegations of domestic abuse by him against his family. Yet Will Smith is literally only allowed to grovel for forgiveness more than a half year after slapping someone for insulting his wife.
There is no actual evidence that Brad Pitt did everything. People can watch
exactly.
What Will
There's
Smith
a he
camera.
said, she said situation versus something that happened on live TV.
Yeah. That's
are vastly the main
different.
difference. And secondly, it's ridiculous to frame this as if it's some kind of racial issue where coming to Will Smith's defense is coming to the defense of the honor of the entire black population. Like, that's insane. And also kind of insulting because I wouldn't liken an entire racial group to one celebrity who is obviously narcissistic and ill-tempered and emotionally dysregulated.
He probably would have been better off.
He blamed this on like his childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like
ridiculous.
anything to get out of it, though. I mean, like, it was just such a weird, like, I was the one who was like, man, I don't really have a lot to say about last night. But the thing that I took away from last night's interview with Ye was that he said, when you become famous, you stop aging. Like, the age that you are when you get famous is how old you stay, because then you have like your parents handling it, or you have handlers who then go to the next handler or whatever else. And that was really interesting. Like, in some ways, Will Smith became famous, was a child star, was famous all through his young 20s, and in some ways, like, the impulsivity of like attacking someone on stage for dishonoring your wife in this weird way, like it seemed like a lack of self-control, which to me communicated
Childish,
immaturity.
yeah.
Right.
It's like Ye said, I got famous at 24 years old and I stopped maturing. Whenever you get famous is when you stop growing as a person. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It depends on if you have the proper guidance around you.
Don't they say the same thing about sexual abuse?
They do say the same thing about sexual abuse. I guess it's just like any point in your life where you go through an intense change of perspective. I don't know.
If somebody joins the military at 18 and goes to war, do they stop maturing at 18?
Well, that is like an effect of PTSD, is that you're frozen in time.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So like when you experience something traumatic like abuse, then like it becomes difficult to mature because that experience dominates your psyche so intensely. With what Ye was talking about, it's more like you no longer have to continue to mature and take accountability and be responsible, right? Like, think as simple as like if you've ever rented an apartment, right? You got to fill out the application, you got to move your stuff, you got to figure out how you're turning on your utilities. Like, there are all steps, and once you do them, you know how to do them for life, kind of thing. Yeah. But if you become famous at 16 and then you have a manager who helps you buy your house and does all that stuff for you, like, do you ever even sign a check? Do you ever really do any of that stuff? There's a difference between being sort of stuck at an age because you're experiencing emotional trauma versus like being shifted into a lifestyle where like the world caters to you and you don't have to develop the skills to survive in it.
Another reason you should laugh in the face of any celebrity or famous person that tells you how to live your life on Twitter.
Or in a pretentious film. Here's this other tweet that I think said exactly my take. I know Will Smith's agony and slap is escapism for many because he's an entertainer. However, I can care less that the man felt his wife was disrespected in that moment. What I'm sick of seeing is this, quote, slavery epic, Emancipation, that he stars in, not being called what it is. And him employing the drama of Slapgate to preemptively defend this film for a flop is extremely disingenuous, and it's not recognizing that there are consequences that to making entertainment that alienates mainstream audiences and audiences overseas. Here's another example with Strange World. People are claiming that this box office flop that might lose Disney almost $100 million or more is a circumstance of adapting from the post-COVID era in the box office, that people feel more comfortable watching things at home now, and they were too scared to go to the theaters in 2022, almost 2023. And they're claiming also that homophobic viewers didn't want to see this movie because they hate representation for LGBT youth. They'll come up with any reason except that the product they made was inadequate.
There's a really good article on Bounding into Comics right now about this that says like the reason that these movies fail is much simpler than you think. I recommend that everyone go over there. It's on the front page right now and go check this out. The theater one for Strange World is interesting because I do think that there is an argument to be made these days that it is definitely a harder sell for them to figure out how to make movies that people actually want to go see that aren't superhero movies. And then when they do, they don't know how to market it anyways. So they screw themselves over twofold. Because they don't market them properly or they don't know how to.
Which they apparently allocated $60 million to, or $80 million.
I didn't see any of at all. But with Emancipation, like this is just one of those things that it's going to be a niche audience because people, first of all, we're in a recession. Movies are very expensive to go see. People will wait for this one to go on Apple Plus. I don't know who actually uses. I don't use Apple TV, but
whoever watched
someone does,
Gutsy
apparently.
by Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Yes. To be
They'll
fair,
go straight from watching Gutsy to watching Emancipation because it just wasn't preachy enough.
But look, okay. Also, are we in our own? Look, we're part of the whether you like it or not, or whether I like it or not, we're stuck in the culture war of sorts. Whether you want to or believe it or not, we kind of are. So there are people who are going about their days every day who don't really realize that this stuff is going on. They might be more amenable to a movie like this where, if they don't feel like it's just another part of Hollywood flogging themselves for the sins of their country's past and stuff like that. But I do think that plays a role in it. And it's the pretentiousness of it all. But to be fair, there's also something to be said about the unseriousness of the times we live in where we're using a guy who slapped a guy in a tuxedo at an award show and having to talk about it as he advocates for a movie that's about one of the the worst atrocity that this country ever performed, right?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in some ways, I feel like doing something serious and trying to become respectable again is his only move, because if he had been put in I'm thinking a Jack Black style kind of slapstick comedy.
I think that was the way to go.
You think it would be better to
I loved Bad Boys.
I feel like I can't tell if that would he would get attacked for being you committed assault in public and you should not be doing this, or if that would have been better, because now it's weirdly cheap to be well, I'm doing something. I'm talking about a serious issue in my next movie.
I think it would be this is the Will Smith that we remembered and loved. And
people would be more forgiving of fun Will Smith if he comes back as fun Will Smith again in Bad Boys. Or
Bad Boys for Life did amazingly. If he did something in that tone, I think it would have done much better.
But there's no choice because this was already
the last thing I want to hear when Emancipation or Strange World or any of these films underperform is that it's the audience's fault and that we are somehow racist, bigoted, homophobic, or that we have remaining fears about the pandemic. Those are all fake, phony reasons that people aren't showing up and getting in seats at theaters.
Look,
it's because you need to give the audience something that has mass appeal.
There was a thing in the article that I was reading earlier. I've kind of... This is going to be unpopular, not an unpopular take, but I have my own reservations about the idea that to a lot of people, whether they believe it or not, identity does matter to them. I would like to believe that it doesn't. I don't think it should judge how you go see a movie. But a lot of people were saying, one of the arguments they were making as to why they didn't go see Bros was because there was nothing in the movie that they identified with. And that's a fair take, right? There's nothing in that movie for me. I'm not gay. I don't have any interest in rom-coms particularly anyways. Why would I go see it if there's nothing in that movie for me to see? For this, are the only people that are going to identify this going to be kind of the elite liberal class that loves to spout from the ivory tower? Or is there going to be your average, everyday Midwestern family that's going to want to go and see this? I don't think that that's a thing, but I don't think that that makes them bad people. It's just not something that in a recession, in times of crisis as a society, you're not going to spend your hard-earned money to go be lectured or to get a revisionist history lesson on something that happened in our past.
Yeah.
We can accept that bad things happened without needing to have multimillionaires be the ones that tell us that is the truth. There's something insulting about it, but that's also our own fault as a society for elevating these people to a status they don't deserve. We treat them as thought leaders and as people that are important to society. They're not.
Yeah.
They do work that may entertain us, and that's, if depending on how much entertainment matters to you, that matters, I guess. But they're not the ones you look to for moral guidance. They're not the ones you look to for anything other than entertainment. So we have our own battles to fight as to when these movies are going to work and when they aren't. And I guess the only way to really know is by box office numbers, but that's even less plausible now, because more and more things like this that are getting made are going to end up going straight to streaming because they don't see them as financially viable. So then they get to both blame you for the movie not doing well without the numbers to back it up and constantly churn this stuff out.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Anthony Fuqua and Will Smith, that it could be really, really good, but I just don't think right now is when it's going to have its most success. I think maybe 10 years ago this would have done really, really well.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think identity is an inescapable concept. Identity is what frames your view of the world. And while there are probably, I don't even know what you'd call it, like toxic identity, like people who are too obsessed with certain parts of it.
But there has to be more.
Right, but like it's inescapable, and I think while we can try and not, we can work to not view everything through the lens of identity, like your personal framework, like what makes you is inescapable, and you shouldn't be upset about that. Like it's not bad that you might choose not to see movies because they don't appeal to you. Like that's the reality of life, and whether or not that's informed by,
it's like sexual preferences. Like you can't, you don't have the right to someone's attraction.
Right. I would like to think that this movie would do well because it's interesting, and if it's not interesting, it wouldn't do well. I know that because we are an identity-obsessed culture, like there will be ascribed a reason that may or may not be accurate to how it does, and that's sad. But I just want to caution against saying like, well, I try not to think about identity at all. Like it's natural to, you just don't want to be so dominated by it that you are unable to, see other perspectives.
Yeah, it's not the concept of making a film about a particular slave's story or about freedom or about American history that is a problem to me. That's fine if you want to do that. And, that can have artistic merit. But because of the climate right now, I feel like it's, and also the marketing, I feel like it is airing a grievance about 21st century problems rather than telling an authentic story about things that happened in the past.
I think they have an out on this one to just say like it didn't do well because of Slapgate, and then they don't have to blame.
Well, that's why they're preempting it right now in the media. So, I mean, congrats, Will Smith. You got your perfect loophole.
I think his best bet would have been to come back and do another action movie or another.
Definitely
should have come back as Deadshot for a new.
This was not smart for him, but maybe he will after this.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.